I'm your host, Brandy Fleck, and this is Human Amplified. This is a show about our existence, our place in the world, what it all means, and ways to make it better. From big picture ideas that blow your mind to practical life advice, we explore it all. We amplify the voices of healers, survivors, mystics, disruptors, scientists, creatives, and everyday people like you and me to expand our consciousness and use that awareness to evolve into who we really want to be in the depths of our soul. Humans Amplified. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, please go rate and review the show. And remember to subscribe where you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Support for this podcast comes from Bed of Nails. You've probably seen acupressure products before, maybe in your Facebook feed or something like that. It could be for any number of brands, but it's a fact that the Bed of Nails is the Swedish original. I've been using the Bed of Nails mat and pillow since 2012. Before they were popular, no joke. I personally remember when no other products were widely available and when I was scared to even try it. But I did try it. When you lay on it at first, it can get a little uncomfortable, but that's short-lived. After a few minutes, your back gets warm, starts pulsing, and then starts to relax. You quickly get used to distributing your weight on the Bed of Nails, and it's nothing but a welcomed reprieve from a stressful day. Over the years, it's helped me increase circulation, relax, and reduce pain in my back and neck. I also use my Bed of Nails every single time I meditate, and I love it. If you feel like you would like to do the same, you can shop my Bed of Nails affiliate link to get yours. I have put that link in the show notes of the episode, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can find it in the description of this video. And there is also a discount code there for you where you can get 15% off at checkout. So be sure to go get it. Second guessing your intuition is normal, especially in the South, where there's culturally a lot of fear around trusting your intuition. And we'll go so far as to say trusting psychic hits that you get. Yes, you. In this episode, we're talking to Laura Stendel. She's a licensed massage therapist here in Franklin, Tennessee, offering various forms of bodywork and energy work in her sessions. She owns Intuitive Bodywork Tennessee, and she's known for incorporating her own intuition into her sessions. And so today, we're diving deep into that topic. We cover things like how bodywork is inextricably linked to intuition for Laura, how this manifests in massage therapy sessions for her and her clients, and she even gives us specific examples, which are really helpful. And here's a quick trigger warning. As Laura shares one particular client story that she does have permission to share, the topic of kidnapping and negative entities does come up for a few minutes around the 15 to 20 minute mark or so. So listener discretion is advised. But then we get into really tangible tips for how you can start to listen to your intuition and release fear around it so you can start trusting it again. Maybe you've been culturally conditioned to fear it, or maybe you trusted it at one point but lost that connection through trauma. We address it all. Laura also talks about psychic and intuitive experiences she had right around the time when we recorded this interview, and she even hones in on one little hit that she got with me. Throughout the conversation, we use my own spiritual journey and experience of strengthening my intuitive abilities as an example for you as well. And side note, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Human Amplified, that you're on right now, and this is a really interesting topic to you, feel free to go do that. Just subscribe, because in addition to this podcast, you can follow my spiritual journey. Check out the Going Woo with Brandy playlist. I just started it, so the name might change eventually, but I've linked that for you here in this video and in the description box if you're watching, and it's also linked in the show notes if you're listening. Now, for the last quarter of the interview, we focus on everything you need to know about chakras and tie that back into strengthening your own abilities to work with intuition and energy. And last but not least, we end on Laura telling you what she thinks The most important thing to remember is when you're growing, healing, taking care of yourself, and leaning into your own powerful abilities. I won't spoil it, but I'll give you a hint. It has to do with letting go of something you might be holding onto so tightly. After we stopped recording, we talked for almost an hour, and both of us wish we had just kept recording because it was really valuable and cool. So have no fear. I definitely think we'll get Laura back on the show at some point to keep diving deep into these important, empowering, and life-changing practices. Without further ado, here she is. For the links mentioned throughout this episode, visit the show notes at humanamplified.com/episodes/114. Laura, a question I ask everyone who comes on the show is, what does being human mean to you?
Okay, so that was the first question I saw in your email, and I was like, oh, she didn't want to know what my cat's name was. Okay, this is a little this is a little bit more than I thought. I saw it and I was like, that is such a deep question. And so that is the one question that I've been thinking about. What does it mean to be human? I mean, honestly, as a species, as a human being, as a soul, I think what it would mean to me ultimately is we're able to distinguish experiences and memories. And I think human beings have this innate sense of taking those experiences and creating memories like they're real places still, not just like living in the past, and they shape who we are moving forward. I think it's definitely what sets us apart from any other animal. And memory is a lot of what I'm sure we're going to talk about today. What comes out for people in sessions with me creates experiences that the body holds on to, that we have, I think, as a gift that a lot of other species don't have going on for them, right? Like a lot of other species are able to just experience things and move on and learn how to survive just based off basic instincts, where we take experiences and memories and it shapes us for the rest of our lives.
I love that answer. And it's actually really unique. I've been asking people this question for a long time, and not many people approach it in that way. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. So I just took a few notes here because I actually don't have any questions about memory, but we'll go there. I think we'll
Sure.
go there.
Let's go there, girl.
All right, everybody. Today we are welcoming to the show Laura Stendel. Thank you so much for being here. I am really looking forward to this conversation because what we're going to talk about
Yeah.
today is like one of my most favorite topics.
Yay!
So, welcome to
Mine
the show.
too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so before we dive in, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Laura. I am a licensed massage therapist. I'm a mom. I have been in Tennessee since 2017, and I actually was born and raised on the West Coast, so it's definitely a different life we experience out here, but one that I wanted badly. I graduated college in 2003 with the intention that I was going to go on to be an attorney. And I was convinced ever since I was a little girl, that that's what my trajectory was. And then I graduated, and en route to law school, completely changed my mind and had a change of head and heart. Ended up in massage therapy school, of all things. And it is a decision that I have never regretted. I really feel like the universe put me on a path of what was going to be best for me mentally and physically. I like a good challenge. So I think I probably would have been an okay attorney, but I think what I do now is much more rewarding, and it has taken me places I never thought that I would dream of being. I started my career in, of all places, Las Vegas, thinking, oh, I'll be here for a couple of years. This could be fun, in my early 20s. And I stayed for a really long time, about 12
Mm.
years. I owned a business there. It was a lot of fun. It was very challenging. Vegas is a hard place to grow up. That's for sure.
I bet.
It'll either make you or break you, right? And I stayed, and I got out on my own terms. And when I was ready for greener pastures, I mean, literally, I packed up and we came here to Franklin, Tennessee. And I haven't regretted that either. I'm really happy here. Kind of rekindled my love with massage after COVID. I felt like it was the right timing to get back into massage. And I thought, well, maybe I'll dabble in it a little and meet some new people and work part-time. And within like 6 months, I had a full-time business going, and I knew it was it was a train I couldn't stop. So
Yeah.
so
Ooh, I
yeah,
just got chills.
then yeah. So I love it. It fills my cup. I own my own practice. I have now since 2022. Worked for someone else for a little bit just to get my feet wet again, and then just realized like, hey, I got to work for myself again. That's where I'm the happiest. And here I am meeting people like you who are not just clients, but they turn into my friends. And as everyone knows, who's known me as a massage therapist for 19 years and counting, I treat all my clients like they're my family. And I have lived so far away from my family for so long that they really do get that special place in my heart and in my life. So it's
Oh,
great. I'm very
yeah.
lucky. I'm very, very lucky. I do something I really actually love so much. And not a lot of people could say that.
It's true. I love that. And you do treat your clients really well, by the way,
Yep.
guys. Like, it's true.
Yep.
And I love that when you realized you wanted to do something different, you just embraced it. I
Yeah.
mean, at least that's what it sounded like.
It was almost like a choice of, I'm just going to have to maybe reinvent myself and go back to school and start all over again. It's like one day I just knew that being an attorney was probably very profitable. What I went to school for, I had a lot of knowledge in political science and in women's studies, and I thought that it was the trajectory. And then to just know, like that intuition telling you that's not where you're supposed to be forever, and it very will likely the stress could kill you, you know. I just went against everything that I had gone to school for and did something completely different.
Mm, okay. So you work with the body, but it's really
Yes.
interesting because I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions about intuition. And I think it's really unique how you incorporate that into the work you do with the body. So, can you tell us how you use your intuition when working with clients?
Yeah. It's interesting because it grew with me. It grew up with me. I've had, I don't even know what you'd call it. Some people in mainstream call it gifts, right? I was just taught it's just a part of who I am and where I actually come from, like a lineage of this.
Mm,
But I didn't really know how to facilitate it properly. You know, I think a lot of us are born with intuition. I think all of us are born with intuition, and all of us are born with gifts. It's just, do we hone in on that? Are we taught to embrace it? Are we taught to fear it? Are we taught nothing about it? And so we're just constantly second guessing ourselves, you know, that gut instinct or those little moments of clairvoyance. And you're like, wow, deja vu, or wow, I knew that was going to happen. I've always had that all my life, but I couldn't control it necessarily. And then fast forward into growing with my massage practice, I thought that energy work was definitely going to be like the next natural progression after doing body work. And I really thought energy work's going to be what blows this whole intuition clairvoyance thing wide open. And I started with Reiki. A lot of people know what Reiki is. It's a form of energy work. And I was attuned to level one and nothing. I felt nothing. And I was like, got to keep going. And I was attuned to level two. And I was like, wow, this is just not my thing. But I just knew there was more to it. And I just thought, well, maybe second guessing yourself, right? Like maybe I am reading into more than what's really there. And then I started doing different forms of energy work just as continuing education. Being a therapist, you have, just like most licensed professions, you have to keep up with continuing education. And it's like the more I added into, my bag of tools here, learning chakra balancing and learning essential oil and aromatherapy and learning acupressure, it's like I just started feeling like, okay, if I don't force it, if I just learn more, all these little nuggets that I'm learning might come together as something. And ultimately, I was right. And so there again, there's that intuition going, you think you're going to be in control. You thought it was going to be Reiki. You thought it was going to be just body work, but no, it's something more than that. And fast forward to, I've been doing this for 19 years now. I feel like I've been able to finally, within the last 10 years, like really hone in on what that is, how I can facilitate that in my body work, how I can show other people how to do it. And it's just becoming a beautiful experience and like something that I never was afraid of, but I always wanted to control. And it turns out that's not how the universe works. And so, yeah, I'm just like really stepping into this more and more the older I get and the more I learn.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of how it comes out in the body work? Like, do you have a memory with that
Oh,
you
yeah.
used with a client where it's like, oh, this is where I should go do this type of massage or something like that?
Sure. Yeah, I have a lot.
Okay.
A lot, but I mean, there's a few things that just stand out. I remember the first time I'd ever used acupressure as a form of healing and therapy for a client that had cancer. And I was like, well, this seems gentle enough and something that might just help them relax. And I honestly didn't think that I was very good at it and just wanted more or less practice because I had just started really diving into this whole idea of acupressure, which is very similar to acupuncture, sans needles, right? Safe for massage therapists who are educated on it to practice. And I'm in this session with this woman, and as I'm literally holding acupressure points on her face and around her neck, I looked down and I could cry. I saw my mother. And I mean, clear as day, I was looking right at my mom. And I'm thinking, why am I thinking about my mom? And then, again, the second guessing comes in. Was I just talking to my mom on the way over here? Were we talking about moms before she laid down on my table? And then it's like I started getting a little bit more of a clearer picture. And again, trying to think, how does that correlate with my day? Was I just thinking about all these things? And I took the chance when it was over. And she sat up and she's like, wow, I just feel so much more relaxed. And thank you. I'd never experienced anything like that. And I was like, can I ask you something? And I just kind of went for it. And I said, by chance in our session, were you concentrating on your mother? And just, I mean, waterworks. And I'm getting nervous thinking I've crossed the line and I had no right. And of course, second guessing, constantly second guessing, right? And she's like, I was. She's like, I am literally in the most painful experience of my life dealing with cancer. And all I wish all the time was that I just had my mom.
Oh,
And she's like, and I was thinking about my mom. Isn't that funny you mentioned that? And I was like, yes, that's very funny that I mentioned that. And I was like, and I was like, and I felt like bells were going off. And I thought, okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening to myself. I'm listening to my thoughts. Let's just stop trying to second guess. And it was a little bit of stuff like that. Practicing, 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 still second guessing. I still do it. I think even the best of the best still second guess. There's a lot of discernment that goes on that makes you think, was I just listening to that song? Did I just eat that food? Was I just thinking of that place for a vacation? And sometimes you just have to go, I don't care. It feels so real. I've got to talk about it. So I'll fast forward to just last year when I opened my own business. I received a client from my chiropractor, and I really knew nothing about this woman. She was on my schedule. I could see her first and last name, but really that doesn't matter to me until I know exactly why they're in there. And all I got from my chiropractor is that she's just very kind, but she's been through a lot. And, like take it slow with this one. And I was like, okay, well, that tells me we can't just dive right into deep tissue, right? So she's telling me a little bit about her problems when I would get to like her hips. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what happened here? It's really heavy. This is not just like, oh, I strained it sitting at work. And she's telling me about a lot of body trauma, a lot of stuff that now is obvious to me that I'm feeling. She had had a really bad car accident where she was literally hit with a car on that side, and I'm like, okay, that's all making a lot of normal scientific sense, right? But then I started hearing the name, and I heard a name clear as day. I heard the name Billy. Now, nobody in our day and age right now, girl, goes by the name Billy. I mean,
no,
how many friends do you have named Billy?
none.
No, maybe like Will, right? Or
Hmm.
William still, or whatever. And so I'm like literally hearing this name and I'm like, why are you here? What is this name? And now there's no discerning. I don't know anybody named Billy. Like and then I feel this presence, this like looming presence. And I'm like taking a different posture and I'm like tucking her into the sheets. And now I'm turning up the heat and all these things that would make me feel safe, right? And she's telling me a little bit more about some of her trauma. And by the way, I did get her permission to talk about this. Won't say her name, but she starts telling me about when she was kidnapped as a child, and her kidnapper's name was William.
Oh, Lord.
So I don't know that until I say, who's Billy? And she goes, I don't know anybody named Billy. And then it clicks that Billy's William. That's a nickname. And she goes, and oh my God, Laura, the only person who called him Billy was the investigator. And I said, well, he's here. I feel him, and I'm going to tuck you in and make you safer. And I'm taking posture right now that he's not allowed here, but he's trying. He's trying, my friend, because he is a bad guy, right? But he doesn't get to win today just because he showed up. I'm telling you right now, you are alive. You got away, and we are not letting him in this safe space. And she literally like got off the table, buck naked, and was like, "How did you know?" And I was like, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't. Isn't that bizarre? I don't, but now I do, and I'm going to make sure you're in a safe space, and this person doesn't get to take up any more of our time. But
Yeah.
yeah, we acknowledge you, but you don't get to be here today. And it was like, we felt better. And then she and I instantly had this connection, and it's like I knew more than she ever needed to tell me. I just knew. It's like the picture got clearer and clearer and clearer. And it's because I took that chance and said, by the way, who is this person?
Yeah.
Right. And so in that, I think just meeting someone off the street, that's a hard connection to get right away. I think there's people who do have those gifts. I really do. And I think it's fantastic. But I think in the exchange of body work, in the exchange of sharing experiences or these little glimmers that they're giving me of what happened, I suddenly feel things, hear things that I am trying to discern that ultimately lead me to ask like the questions with confidence. And there has been times I have said, who is so and so? And they go, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I'll wait. Because
Yeah.
it does take a little bit of time to make that connection. And I'm sure, I am so sure that I'm literally like, okay, we'll wait. We'll just think about that. I'll wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, there's such an energy exchange happening in body work. As anybody who's had a massage and walked away thinking they feel like they're floating or they're so much better or they feel freer. It's a huge exchange of energy going on in one little confined space.
Yeah,
Right.
it really is. I think it's really cool that you're able to do that. So, let me,
It's a lot to unpack, I know.
yeah. So let me pivot into trauma for a minute then,
Sure,
since we're
sure.
talking about it. So, I work with a lot of people who've experienced trauma, and definitely in my own healing journey, I've noticed that when you've been through certain things like maybe emotional abuse or neglect or something like that, you have a really hard time trusting your intuition. You don't trust yourself. You don't even know what your
Right.
intuition is. You're in fight or flight. And so it gets really quiet or quieter. And so for someone who can't hear it or trust it, what advice would you have?
I think it's really important that you find somebody you feel safe with and just not expect a lot, right? But just expect what I call glimmers. I don't know where I came up with that name. I don't think anybody's ever called it that to me, but we talk so much about triggers with
Mhm.
trauma, and I'm like, let's talk about glimmers, right? And these little parts that go, okay, I feel that when I'm around that person, or the energy changes when that person comes into my space, or I suddenly feel safe when I cross that threshold, and just be willing to experience and allow these glimmers to come. You can't force them to come. That's what I've learned, right? Like case in point, I was trying Reiki to suddenly become this really intuitive, clairvoyant, and it just is like never happened for me. And it happens for a lot of people with Reiki or other things, but it just wasn't me. I was forcing something that couldn't happen. I think learning and just asking the questions where we live now, Brandy. Unfortunately, most people who are born and raised in the South were taught this is stuff you fear.
Yes.
This is the antithesis of like Christianity and other things. And so they're even afraid to talk to me about it. Like I'm going to come at them and be like, you're going to hell. We're talking about this. And I'm like, I mean, no, let's
Yeah.
talk about whatever you want to talk about. And let's see what happens. And I'm a safe place to experience this with you or not, but just maybe be a little hope that you could really tune into that for yourself.
I love that you brought that up because it's like it's so taboo. And earlier when you were like experiencing things, you're like, "Oh, zip, like it's
Yep.
even
Yeah.
you don't know if you should say something or not." So, how do you respond to that fear? Or no, I want to ask it another way. It's almost like
Sure.
for someone who thinks intuition or like psychic hits, or I think we're using them interchangeably, but
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
How do you help them not think it's evil?
Okay. It just depends on what the person's been through. For example, I would say, even right now, you are probably telling yourself what you've always heard, even though you want to be in this room with me talking about these things. Am I right? And they're like, yeah, it's like that chatter of cultural societal norms, right? Or what they were told growing up is still kind of pulling their shirt this way when they want to go this way. It and it's difficult. These are just walls that get broken down slowly, right? And I'm not there to change anybody's minds. I'm not there to say, hey, you're going to walk the same path I walk. That's not how it works. But what I will do is say, tell me about maybe a time when you were intuitive and you were right. Did you get set on fire and were you damned to hell? You know what I mean? And were you right and it saved your life? Right? Or were you right and you went against it? And then there's that Captain Hindsight that said, see, you knew better, right? Like, let's talk about that. Like, again, that's a real experience that kind of creates who you are moving forward. So, okay, like next time, maybe just be a little bit softer to that. I did have a client who said blessed, that she was afraid that if she even listened too intently to her gut, that she was going to like open the door for demons. And I was like, well, then shut the door. You know what I mean? Like, we have the power to control not just like what we do physically, but mentally. It's finding that right mind heart connection that feels safe, right? It's
Yeah.
like we can practice safe things without worry of ridicule. It might still be there, right? Broadly speaking, especially like where we live, Randy, right?
Mhm.
And then, but it's everyone's journey, right? It's everyone's journey,
Yeah.
slowly but surely.
It's so funny that you brought up the demon thing because I think that's really prevalent. Because I work to foster my intuition and psychic gifts or whatever you want to call them, and I'm fairly well. I don't know if I'm new at it, but I've been really focusing on it a lot lately. And I decided to tell my parents about it the other day, and they're pretty open to this kind of thing. But the first thing that came out was, well, if you open up to the good stuff, you also let in the bad stuff. What happens if you come across a demon? And I'm like, well, I'll just set
Yeah,
a boundary. Like, I don't know. I don't know how I'll set a boundary. Well, like
yeah,
visualizations or whatever. But I just really think the demon thing is prevalent. And it's been coming up a lot lately, which is
yeah,
really interesting.
yeah. I mean, but also think about talking about where we live. It is so okay in the South to say, not today, Satan, right? Shirts even say, not today, Satan, right? And so, like, we are acknowledging a supernatural that is opposite of light and love, right?
Hmm.
And we even joke about it. We joke about it. Not today, Satan, right?
Yeah.
Um, so ultimately, energy is what's important. Whether you put big energy into things that feel good, that are light and love, or you put big energy into things that don't feel good, you have the power to control that. Nobody else does, right? Nobody else does. Not
Hmm.
a pastor, not a mother, not a father. We have this beautiful thing called, like will. We are allowed to will whatever we want in whatever way we want, right? And so I think I'm going to use you as an example. Like taking this journey for yourself, you could look at everything as being terrifying, right? Let me pivot for just a second and say, like, for example, if you're into tarot, a lot of
Hmm.
people are so scared of tarot, and I'm like, that's
Yes.
okay. I'm deathly afraid of. You're gonna laugh at me. I've got all kinds of phobias that are just so silly, and I'm like, fear is a fear, right? Like a fear is a fear.
Hmm.
Um, in the tarot deck, if you were to pull, let's say, the death card, people are like, oh my God, I knew it. It's awful, right? Oh my gosh, I knew it. This is Satan's work. I'm like, well, we all die. It's like the one thing we will be all certain of, right? As soon as we are born, we are dying. But in tarot, death literally means like the death of something now and the shift of something being created, a new door opening. And doesn't
Hmm.
that happen for us even as children, moving on from elementary school to high school and high school to college and one relationship through divorce? It doesn't have to mean evil. right? And so when someone may get the death card pulled and their first reaction is to have fear, I do believe that a fear of death is real. It's more or less the fear of the unknown. But in tarot, that just means like, hey, like some doors closing so another door can open. We cannot have new life without death, right? Like we cannot all live forever and have an overpopulated earth. And it's just recycled energy, right? And so when you think of moving forward in your journey, I would encourage you just create the kind of energy that you want. And that's the kind of energy that you'll get back. You just get to choose, how do you interpret that?
Right.
And to one person that might be evil, devil, whatever, demons, or it might be letting go, shifting blame, taking responsibility, getting mental help, getting self-help, whatever it is, like finding love and light in my life, like moving through hard things.
I love this perspective. I love
Yes.
it. And I don't know if this is going to be like a softball or a curveball, but are you getting any intuitive hits right now?
All day long, all day long. And in fact, at 3:23, when I went to silence my phone, there, and not just with you and I right now, because I'll talk about that in a second, but I received a text from an old chiropractor that I have not heard from in a very long time. I've worked for chiropractors. I've seen lots of chiropractors. And wouldn't you just know that when I got off of work and went to a restaurant that reminded me of this person, I was thinking about this person from like 1:30 to 2:30. And I sit down at my phone and lo and behold, there is a text message from said chiropractor at 3:23. And I was like, I almost want to say, hey, I kind of should have known you were going to call today or text today or check in today or ask me about my business today, because funny, out of nowhere, I thought about you for an hour. You know, it's like stuff like that happens so frequently, Brandy, that it's just like I said, it's just kind of like my way of life.
Yeah.
Right. It does take a lot of like alone time and grounding to like kind of shut all that out. Like I knew on the way to work today that I was going to have a client, and all three clients I know very well. All three clients have not had emotional breakdowns, but I knew that one of them was going to today, and I knew it was going to be dark hair, and I knew it was, you know what I mean? Sure enough, like that happened today in session, and I was there for it. I didn't have to say anything. I just knew like, it's okay to let go. I think you want to let go today. And there was just, bleh, you know, and that is such a beautiful thing. And I felt prepared. I knew today was going to be the day that one of my dark haired clients was going to, you know, it's just like these little things that you're discerning. You're like writing a story and you're like, okay, I'm writing for that today, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But also I just like, I'd say I get excited, and this is how it is in session too. Like I start wanting to like ask questions, and I start almost like writing down initials and things like this, and it's just really neat to see where how the picture gets clearer. It's starting to make sense, everything I was hearing, right? Like all these little, and I'm like, oh, there it is. Thank you for explaining to me. Now I feel like I'm driving through, you know, driving with a windshield that's clear, where before it was like a little mucky, and then it gets a little clearer. And next thing you know, I'm driving with like a very clean windshield, and I see what you see. It's really cool.
Oh, it's really interesting that you brought up like letting go of emotions, because today I was with a personal trainer working out, and I've been doing that for about 8 weeks now. And
nice. Yay.
Yeah.
Go ready.
And at the end of the workout, it was just so hard. And I had been having kind of an off morning, and the tears just wanted to come. I don't know. I don't know if it's the full moon that's coming or what, but like
tonight, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they just had to come. And I felt so weird and awkward, but I was like, I'm sorry. It just has to happen.
Oh, see, we apologize. Yeah, we apologize. Oh my gosh, Brandy took up space with her emotions, right? Like you got to apologize. And that's why I always tell people like, it's okay. It's okay. Like if anything, like here is the safest place for you, right? And in some cases, when their session's over, I stay, or I keep going, or I go home and I'm journaling about them. And then I'm asking them questions later and checking in with them, because like what they're going through matters to me, you know? And just to have the bravery and the vulnerability it takes to show emotion, right? And it is brave. It is brave. I've been there too. But then I find myself going, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
don't apologize for taking up space. And good for you, Brandy. I mean, there's a huge mind body connection that maybe has had a huge disconnect for you for
Hmm.
quite some time, holding you back from stepping into your arena of just how big and powerful you can be, right?
Maybe so.
So
Yeah.
when you go and do something like a hard workout that challenges you, and then you feel like you've accomplished something, right? Like that's you stepping into that arena, but yeah, it's a little emotional. It's a little
Yeah.
emotional.
It is. And I find that, like, even if I know I'm feeling an emotion and I've done some kind of physical activity or some kind of body work, it usually opens something up.
Sure. Yeah. To your point, I literally tell people like, let's blow those portals wide open
Hmm.
because we are walking entities of energy. This is why we need energy work so much. And when I get people who are skeptics, I'm like, I have the whole skeptic routine down to a pad. I'm like, okay, well, what are human beings made of? Well, we're made of water and we're made of carbon. Okay, and that's great. And what is all that made out of? And
Hmm.
if you take it, keep breaking it down to the most basic thing, and okay, well, we're atoms. Okay, well, what are atoms? Energy, right? And how did we get created as atoms, right? Energy. And it's just, where does it go? It doesn't just disappear. It just renews and recycles, right? And so what you've probably been feeling for a long time is just your energy channels stuck, blocked. What does that create? Well, that creates a loss of sense of self. It creates skepticism. It creates physical disabilities. It creates emotional handicaps, right? It creates us like stopping ourselves from going through the process of self care, of asking for help, of resetting, of creating boundaries. And so we've got to get those, I said, blast those portals wide open because what else is possible, right? When your energy is functioning properly, when your body feels good and your mind feels good. And it doesn't mean that we don't all go back into a funk or that things don't depress us or that life's situations don't feel heavy sometimes, but we have to be able to know how to work through it. And I hope that, by showing people how important self-care is, by showing people that they have a safe place, by teaching people how to have do self-care at home, how to practice energy work, basic things like breathing exercises, that you can be more in tune with your body and then ultimately like more in tune with how to receive and let energy flow better.
Mm, okay. Well, speaking of, and when you said let's blow those portals open,
Let's do it.
yeah, yeah, are
Yeah.
are you referring to chakras?
Yes. So chakras to me, it's so interesting. Not a lot of people understand it. It's not hard to understand. It's more or less harder to just accept, right? Like we understand that we're breathing air, but like the science of it, to see it, to feel, you don't think about it, right? And to try like explain to me oxygen, it's hard. Okay, but we breathe. Yeah, we breathe, and and like we can't function without it, right? It's the same thing with chakras. Like we have these energy. Chakra literally defined means like wheel, like spinning wheel in Sanskrit, and we have these wheels of energy in our bodies that keep us functioning. They keep our blood pumping. They keep our thoughts flowing. They keep us, they help us get up in the morning and they help us find rest at night. And they all have to kind of be in alignment with each other. Or you have like this hiccup in your energy flow, and it can make you feel certain things. For example, if your spinning ball of energy in your crown chakra, for example, like up at the top of your head, literally and physically, like your crown chakra, you might feel a lot of spiritual disconnect. It might be hard for you to tune in with your intuition. You might have a hard time meditating or praying. If you are someone who prays and believes in a more religious sense, then you might feel like you don't have a right to pray and ask for what you need, or that you're not worthy of accepting and receiving. If you have let's just say like your root chakra is so down, literally down in your private area, like if that is stuck, you might have low libido, constant low back pain, you might have irritable bowel symptoms. There's just so much that can happen. You might have trouble feeling connection to people, feeling grounded. You might not feel comfortable in your own space. I mean, it's so interesting to think that where we in chakras, talking about energy work, where we have these spinning wheels of energy, if they're stuck, it makes sense, right? Like if your third eye chakra right here is stuck, then you have a hard time like seeing future goals set for yourself. You have a hard time getting to them and attaining them. You have a hard time connecting with your intuition. You might experience lots of headaches. You might experience a lot of eye pain. Your eyes might constantly be watering, or you have chronic dry eye. And this isn't anything new, right? This is not a new way of thinking. Chakra balancing is not some new fad of self-care. These go back thousands of years, right? In different Indian, Hindu, Buddhist traditions of how to have overall health and well-being by balancing these energy cycles or circles in our body, and these spinning wheels of energy. They're important. So I fell in love with it, having it done. This is probably 15, 16 years ago, and experiencing what it felt like to get off the table and feel more mental clarity, softness in my heart, a little surrender to my emotions. I was suffering from terrible sciatica, and I felt like for the first time I could get up and my low back wasn't killing me. And I was like, get out of here. Like really energy work made me feel this way. And there again, it's that second guessing, right? But like the more I looked into it, the more I started practicing. I loved it so much that I actually started teaching people like how to do this to themselves, and little things we can do to get a grip on balancing our energy in day-to-day life.
I love that. Okay. So, yeah, I had known that you were teaching some of this stuff to people. So, what would you say is the most important information that someone could have about, like, I don't know if you would say opening or closing or balancing, like all of those parts of doing the chakra work?
Probably what I say when I open with my classes, it doesn't matter to me whether you've done this 15 times or this is your first time and you completely don't believe in it. I don't care if you're a skeptic or if this essentially you're here, but it's still going against some sort of spiritual belief. I believe that I can teach you something that will help open up your eyes to a different form, a more natural, holistic form of self-care that whether they were skeptics when we got started, I know I can almost guarantee that when we are done, you will feel different. Just like I could guarantee that if you laid on my massage table asking for a deep tissue massage because your low back is strained, you are going to feel different. How long those results last? Not sure. I can't make any promises on that. Everybody's different. But can I also guarantee this is something I can show you how to do so you can help rescue yourself when you feel stuck, or be there as your own ally when you feel like no one else is helping you feel better. Yeah, I can definitely do that. And so it really doesn't matter the backstory. That's what I tell people. I just want you to come to the table knowing that, like, I know all the background about this. If you could just trust me and take my hand, like, I'm going to walk you through this and I'm going to show you something that's going to help you grow in your own health and wellness journey. And if anything, I'll just say this, for an hour, you're going to feel pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And whether you can explain it or not, that's okay. Like, right? Like some people get that feeling from going to a meditation class or a sound bowl class or going to church, right? They may not be able to explain it, but when they leave, they feel like a different person. That is what's important to me.
And just for our listeners who may not know, can you give us like just a really quick rundown on what the chakras are and maybe like what their purpose is? I don't know if that's
Sure.
too
No,
big of a
yeah.
question, but
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think generally that's what it is. So kind of going back to it, we touched a little bit about it when I was talking about like crown chakra versus root chakra. And those are the two polar opposites, right? Chakra is top of your head. Root chakra is your base. So essentially there's seven. We have our root chakra, our sacral chakra, which is about sacrum, like, right? Low back, solar plexus. So that's your stomach, right? Everything around your core. We have heart, we have throat, we have third eye. So center of the forehead, and then we have our crown chakra. Chakra is such a beautiful thing. It involves color. It involves auras. It involves feeling things in your body. It involves your breath and breath work. And so it's not just like receiving body work. You are doing a little bit of work, whether you have like a proctor leading you through it or not, but it's gentle, it's kind, it's receiving. And I think for a lot of people, women especially, they have a hard time coming to the table just to receive. And so I teach how to feel where maybe energy is stuck. And that looks different. You might feel hotter parts of the body than others. You might start to see color, right? So if I'm hovering over someone and we're working on crown chakra, because to me that feels stuck, and all of a sudden you're seeing, with your eyes shut, you're seeing color or splashes of white or glimmers of green or whatever, that's something we might want to talk about. If I'm up here and you're just like, all I see is green, we may need to like do like a heart chakra, crown chakra connection. We may need to talk about that. And so it's just really interesting. I have a different take on it. From everything that I've learned, I've realized that chakras are so cool and so three-dimensional, that I like to incorporate essential oils to trigger that sense of smell, memories, feel good feelings, right? Like, for example, if I'm working on the solar chakra, which is associated with the color, or excuse me, if I'm working on the sacral chakra, which is associated with the color orange, I might put literally like a dab of wild orange essential oil in their hands and have them smell it. Well, that affects the olfactory in the brain that kind of signals to you different feelings, different memories, different emotions. For me, anytime I smell orange, it takes me back home to Southern California, right?
Yeah.
And my happy place in my dad's backyard amongst all of our orange trees and our little orange grove. And that might be something that, whether you have a memory with that smell or that color or not, maybe triggers a new one, right? Maybe now in this moment that you feel so good, now this is your safe memory. This is your safe space, right? But I'm trying to like entice that color orange for you, because when we focus on that chakra and we focus on the colors, and we can do everything we can to like get it spinning, it helps essentially you energetically open that up, be willing to receive, get that energy flowing versus like feeling stagnant, back pain, and just like giving into that, right? Caving into that. So chakra is just really cool. I mean, there's just so many things you can do with it. I've done it with giving people different gemstones to hold, maybe associated with that chakra's color, or gemstones and minerals themselves have their own frequencies, energy frequencies and purposes, right? Like quartz is really good for meditation and connecting with divine. And that's also associated with the crown chakra, which is the colors purple and white. I mean, it's just so cool. And you think about it, of course, it's all connected somehow, right? It all boils back down to energy, colors, smells, taste, textile things that we're holding, all of it. It all has a purpose and all has an energy.
Yeah. And so going back to what you were saying in the beginning about being human and our memories, what is really the power of a memory? And I'm asking this question thinking about also what you just said about like
Sure.
The scent and maybe creating a new memory, or what's there.
I think that, like, piggybacking off what I said in the beginning, I think what makes us different as animals, as humans versus other mammals, as other species, is the imprint of memories creates us from that moment forward. And we don't let that go. The old saying is the issues are in the tissues, and we just shove it somewhere and we start experiencing trauma in the body. And later down the road, you're like, I just don't know why I have this chronic hip pain, Brandy. And it's just, I don't know what started it. But if we were to really, and I'm not a therapist, but I would always encourage people to look into that. And there's fantastic ways of going through trauma safely, EMDR and other things that I highly, highly recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And I love growing my little network of people who are safe places to do that. But there are ways to do that. But I'll say that's because when probably likely this happened, right? Which sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes they share, sometimes they don't. It left an imprint in the body, and it changed you unconsciously, subconsciously, conscientiously, and we are forever changed by our memories, are we not? Right? And
Absolutely.
I tell a lot of people who come in and they're going through grief, we cannot die with the dead. We cannot die with the dead. We have to keep going, right? The past is a place of reference, but it's not a place of residence. And there's so many people who just don't let go. And that trauma is just their trauma, that grief is just so ingrained in who they are. And I know that it's their journey, but that I'm just one of many who are a safe place to walk them through that and be a good listener and say, like maybe this is why you're having such terrible neck pain that you haven't been able to explain for 25 years or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because truly, I believe the issues are in the tissues, right? And
Yeah.
that's good things. That's not just bad trauma, right? That's also happy memories and happy times and places that seem like fantasies to us as we get older, right? The things from our childhood that were these little beautiful glimmers of happy times or whatever the case may be, milestones that we were so proud of. Those leave an impression on us just as much as the trauma does.
Do you have any insight into how it gets into the tissues?
I mean, I think the brain does so much to try to protect us, right? That a lot of times people, they will say it's just unexplained physical pain. It's unexplained sudden autoimmune disorders. And I was like, oh, is it? Like, is it? I think that just like we're all kind of walking around knowing we have cancer, right? We have cancer. It's just some people with cancers keep going and dividing and multiplying and multiplying. It's the same with trauma embedded into the DNA of the fabric of who we really are. And some people, it's all consuming, right? And some people, it's hard to find. It's hard to clarify. And some people, they know it's there, but they ignored it. And I really think it just boils down to the brain, our powerhouse, our major source of energy, other than our heart, right? That brain heart connection. It does what it does best. It tries to keep us safe, right? And so if we can't mentally work through it, if we haven't had the right therapy or the right type of therapy to help us through it, the brain puts it somewhere, right? And I mean, we're only walking around using like, what did they say, like 10% of what our brain's capable of?
Oh, yeah.
It's just unbelievable, right? And then there's like the Oppenheimers of the world who like were able to hone in on things that they saw in their sleep and visions of fusion and all these things. And you're like, huh, that's amazing because I don't think about those things, right? But some people are able to unlock more. I just think it's just the brain tries to keep us safe, and in that memory, it locks it away. And unfortunately, wherever it's stored, it kind of has an impact on, in my opinion, on a location in the body,
That
right?
makes sense.
Energy just doesn't disappear. It just
Right.
doesn't. I mean, I think about every time I go to open up my mason jar that has my sourdough starter. Yes, I'm one of those people. Sort of, but I don't let it die. It does get fed. Do I make bread? Not so much. But every time I go to open my sourdough starter, and it's about this thick at the bottom, and I open it up, it goes, and all that pressure gets released, and it starts to rise, right? So I don't know why I thought of that, but like, and then I take some out, and then I feed it, and then I push it back down, and I seal it tight. And I kind of feel like that's what our brain does with trauma, right? Like, okay, we might take a little out, and we might like face it head on, but let's just throw it away. And like, let's take the rest and just shove it back down there, like make it feel good for a little bit, put the can or the lid on real tight and like shove it in the back of the refrigerator,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like what I would, as an analogy, say our brains do with trauma. And a lot of times, I don't think we're equipped. We weren't taught the tools on how to face, on how to open that up and face that head on.
I think that's true. Yeah.
I mean, especially silent generation, boomers, Gen X, I'm Gen X, like we weren't taught that by any means. That wasn't something discussed in school. And it really didn't become like mainstream to take really good care of your mental health until like, social media and stuff started taking off with that. And now it's like, it's a thing to take care of your mental health and to unpack this stuff, right? And work through it. So, and thank God, but it's still a lot to learn.
Yeah. And like the sourdough starter, I mean, you can only process a little bit at a time. You might not be able to handle like a whole jar worth of starter right away or something like that. But
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Laura, this has been an amazing conversation. And I just want to check with you and see if there's anything you want to share that I haven't asked about.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I feel like I could talk to you for like 6 more hours. It's been so much fun. I will just say this. I find myself saying a lot to my friends and to my clients. And not everybody wants to talk about this. Not everybody wants to try this. It is what it is. But I'll say just be more open to what you want to explore and what you want to feel and what you want to discern, because it isn't about how you were raised anymore.
Mm.
Period. Period. We do not belong to our parents. We do not belong to any type of box we were put in. My daughter does not belong to me. She is her own person. She is coming into her own gifts. What I have learned how to do was not what I watched my grandmother who had gifts do. And what my daughter wants to learn is interesting, but not what I have learned in terms of intuition and clairvoyance. And I just think I'm lucky enough that I found an avenue to help me, so to speak, streamline it. Body work was what was supposed to be my calling. And it has helped me not just strengthen who I am with purpose and a career, but like it really showed me that like all those glimmers and all those gifts that I kind of knew were already there. It really showed me like how to use them constructively, safely, and just empower myself while empowering other people. So just follow your own journey and shut out everything else that says, like what you should know about this or what you've been taught or not taught about this, because it's very, very interesting. I think it's very, very natural. And I think if more people followed their intuition, we'd have a happier world. Truly, truly. Just like I believe if more people did self-care, right?
Mm.
That would be a much happier world. So
Yes, I
that's my
agree.
little spiel.
Awesome. All right. Well, where can our listeners find you and your work?
Okay, so you can go to my website, Intuitive, of course, Intuitive Bodywork TN for Tennessee.com. So intuitivebodyworktn.com. I have sessions that you can choose from. I do obviously body work, lots of different styles of body work, including like stretch and reflexology. I love Eastern modalities. I love incorporating all that. I usually do a little chakra in every client session, whether they've asked for it or not. It's just what I do, especially when it comes towards the end and like grounding my clients and just reaffirming safe space. But people can also book chakra balancing sessions. It's a really unique experience. It could take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. It's hard to say. I don't go in there and go, well, we'll have about 45 minutes together, Brandy, and this is what you're, I mean, I'm taking notes. We are sharing information. We are laughing. We are crying. We are letting go. I'm sending you home with things. I will teach you how, to protect your chakras, how to keep the energy flowing. And then I also like to teach that in group settings too. It's a little less personal, if you will. But it's nice to see a group of strangers come together and leave feeling like friends because they're just experiencing something really beautiful together. There's always a lot of sharing and just again creating that safe space. So you can always follow me on social medias too. But if people are stuck, they can just reach out to me through the website or through my cell phone, which is also available on the website. And we can just chat and they can just tell me like, this is who I am. This is what I need. Or I don't know what I need, Laura. I just like, let's just book a session and have you come. And then my intuition will help me figure out what you need.
Yeah.
It usually works out that way.
Yeah. It's really awesome. I just have to throw in there too, like one of the first massages that I ever got with you, at the end, I saw like yellow and green when,
Really?
yeah, talking about like the chakra colors and stuff like that. And I knew like in my head, oh, that's what this is. But I had no idea why it was happening or anything like that. So that prompted me after I left that massage session to come home and like research all about the solar plexus
Uh-huh.
chakra and the heart chakra and like
Yes.
yeah, it was really fun.
And then I tell people like, okay, there's so many little easy natural things you can do too. You can even just do something as simple as like start wearing the color green or put green jewelry on, or I love beaded bracelets, jade, anything like that. Green candles, just anything to like help you remember and have these little glimmers of like, oh yeah, I've got to really think about my heart chakra and I've got to protect it. And what's on my heart that maybe I could journal or so, you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's just so it's so amazing that you saw that. That really makes me feel like the work that I'm doing is it's not that I always say I don't not that I need the validation, but it makes me feel good. It's purposeful. So thank you for sharing that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can't wait to have you back on
I know.
for a massage.
I can't wait to come
Brandy,
back.
I think you're due.
I am. I am. But
Yay, yay.
yeah, well, thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation and the work that you were doing in Franklin and in the world. I think it's really important. So,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
I appreciate you. And then just having this platform is so cool. I've never done this before, but I just appreciate that you asked me to be here and that I could just talk openly and that listeners may enjoy what I had to say. It just fills my heart today. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Thanks for tuning in. Check out more of our episodes here and at humanamplified.com. Remember to subscribe.